Hello, everyone, and welcome to Quantum Unboxing. This episode will be about modernizing the campus network for the quantum era. My name is Shereen Bellamy. I'm a developer advocate for Cisco DevNet.
Hi, my name is Oleksii. I am a co-host for this Quantum Unboxing video series.
And today we have Han Lee joining us. Thank you for joining us, Han.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Han Lee is a product manager at Cisco working on quantum safe secure boot. And he's going to walk us through why this foundation of every campus modernization conversation matters. Before we get into the questions, Han, please tell us more about how you got involved with this topic.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name is Han. I'm the product manager at Cisco's campus switching. So to answer your question, at Cisco, we've always believed that security doesn't stop with protecting data alone. It also has to include the devices that actually handle that data. So that's really what's behind Cisco's long-term investment in trustworthy solutions, which focuses on making sure the hardware and the software at the core of our systems can be trusted. So for us, bringing post-quantum cryptography into device integrity was really a natural next step for trustworthy solutions.
So let's talk a little bit about what makes the campus network quantum vulnerable. Most quantum security conversations we've had focus mainly on the WAN. What would you say makes the modern campus network just as important to focus on?
That's a great question. So I think the reality is that a lot of the focus has been on protecting the data itself. And because the WAN is the path for data entering and leaving the network, it has naturally been the primary focus of many quantum security conversations. Well, I've also heard many customers say that because their switches are deployed in secure spaces, they actually don't feel the urgency to act right away. But I think that's exactly the kind of complacency we all kind of need to watch out for. I mean, switches are still on the data path to WAN. And as edge AI becomes more and more common, we are going to see more and more important data flowing within the campus itself. So that raises a very important question. Can you fully trust the devices in your network? That's why campus deserves just as much attention in the quantum security conversations, because I don't know how many people can actually answer with 100% confidence that they can fully trust the devices in their network.
We've learned that there's a version of Harvest Now, Decrypt Later, and Attack with our previous videos that target data. But there's another version that targets code, specifically the code signing keys. So can you walk us through the latter and the level of impact that that has compared to the first?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, so you probably already familiar with the traditional harvest now, decrypt later scenarios where today an attacker steals encrypted data with the hopes of decrypting it later when quantum computers become available. Well, instead of targeting encrypted data, a similar attack can be conducted to compromise your operating systems that power your network devices. And that is very similar to like having your laptop infected with computer viruses. So what's going on is today attackers, they can collect the RSA or ECC based public keys associated with operating systems or firmware of your network devices. Then later with quantum computers, they could potentially derive the corresponding private keys from the public keys they've collected over the years. Then they can use those private keys to sign in maliciously modified images with backdoors and malware, but still make them look like legitimate. Then let's think of cases where someone was compromised somewhere in the supply chain, or if someone was deploying your device and that individual was compromised, or more complicated cases where, let's say, the update server that distributes the latest versions of your operating system was compromised. These maliciously modified images, could be installed on your network devices through any of these means that we just discussed. Then when that happens, the risk does not stop with data just being lost or exposed. Attackers, they can potentially gain access to your devices, and they can even remotely shut down your entire network. So it's not just the data, it's your entire infrastructure now is at risk. Pretty scary, huh?
Yeah, definitely really scary.
Han, at a vendor-neutral level, what does any modern campus switch architecture need to do satisfy quantum-safe, secure boot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we all have to start looking into the cryptography used to sign firmware and operating systems. I mean, I think across all vendors in the industry, and most of them are still using RSA or ECC to sign their firmware and operating systems. And as we all know, RSA and ECC are deemed very weak against quantum attacks. So yeah, as an industry, we all have to, replace these weaker cryptos with quantum safe algorithms, especially with those that are NIST approved. And Cisco is already in the process of replacing these weak cryptographic algorithms with post-quantum cryptography.
So for the Cisco C9000, the foundational component is the trust anchor module for this, right? Can you walk us through what that physically is and why it lives in the FPGA?
So Cisco C9000 smart switches, and along with other Cisco products like Cisco 8000 secure routers, yeah, we are introducing this hardware anchor chain of trust on our boot process. So what's going on is there's a chain of trust starting from the microloader to bootloader to iOS XE. So it's more of a 3-4 step process where the microloader, which is the first instruction that runs on the switch when it is powered on, is already encrypted with AES GCM 256, which is considered quantum safe. Microloader then will verify the integrity of the bootloader, which has been signed with LMS, a NIST-approved PQC algorithm. If bootloader is safely loaded, bootloader then will check iOS XE, which is signed with ML-DSA. That is another NIST-approved PQC algorithm. So during this process, we are using AES GCM, LMS, and ML-DSA, all NIST-approved PQC algorithms to check the validity of the bootloader and iOS XE. And this process just does not end here. There's another very important aspect. During the boot process, there's a lot of sensitive data that is exchanged between the CPU and the TAM. And there's a logical interface that's connecting the CPU and the TAM. And if the logical interface is not protected, an attacker with physical access with specialized tools like Interface Analyzer can actually intercept data by connecting into the bus interfaces. So what Cisco is doing and addressing the issue is that we're actually encrypting the bus interface and the data transmission between the bus interface. How Cisco is addressing this issue is that we are encrypting the data transmission between CPU and the TAM with AES GCM 256 for data encryption, and with ML-KEM, which is a NIST-approved PQC algorithm used for key exchanges. in this way, if you take a full view of our quantum safe boot process, we have PQC algorithm that is verifying each step of the boot process and verifying each component within the boot process.
So Han, I also know that while you were showing us the secure boot chain, you mentioned that a couple of components were NIST ready. There are some government deadlines to be aware of for PQC, NIST being among them. For the US, I think some of these guidelines, it's to be in place by 2030, the EU also by 2030, and the UK, I believe, up to like 2035. Let's say that there's an enterprise that doesn't fall under any of those mandates, the US, the EU, or the UK. Do you think it's okay to lengthen the timeline? And what would be the impacts of that? Should someone just not deploy anything yet and wait for those that actually created the timeline, to kind of see the effects of that first? What do you think?
No, great question. I mean, countries have set their PQC migration timelines and milestones to kind of encourage their enterprises and government branches to take necessary steps to stay quantum safe. Well, the timeline and the scope varies from country to country. And for example, like you said, in the US, the US government mandates that all government branches that are part of the national security system to acquire quantum safe products starting from January 1st, 2027. So,
Oh, I said 2030. I didn't know it was from as early as 2027. Wow.
I mean, 2030 is when they should have everything fully migrated over to PQC. But what's happening from January 1st, 2027 is that these government branches are required to only purchase quantum safe products and services. So, but yeah, the full migration will obviously take some time because they also have, install bases that are from the legacy platforms. But, these mandates though they only apply to a small group of government agencies, it is actually triggering other private companies to act along as well. So my advice to all our customers is the same. I mean, the time to act is now. The earlier you act, the more data and devices you protect. So yeah, please, despite what the government says, what the timeline is in your country, yeah, it is very important that you start PQC migration planning right now and, identify all the devices that are currently using weaker cryptos and try to plan how you can migrate over to PQC as soon as possible.
ML-DSA and LMS are NIST standardized, but relatively new compared to RSA. Are we confident enough to ensure the entry boot chain of a campus network on them?
Yeah, no, that's an amazing question. And yeah, like you pointed out, lattice-based algorithms and some of the new post-quantum cryptographic algorithms are, have not fully been proven in the field. I mean, I think theoretically they are quantum safe, but there are some, people that have raised doubts on them as well. So what some of the companies or the customers are trying to do is they're trying to do composite signing. So composite signing is they're mixing both RSA and the ML-DSA when signing a firmware or operating system. So it's pretty much like a hybrid signing where you use two or more algorithms to do signing just to be, extra safe when something breaks. We have also heard some, countries that are trying to come up with their own algorithms. So countries, for example, like, Korea, which is still a strong US ally, is still considering coming up with their own version of post-quantum cryptographic algorithms. So yeah, a lot of the countries are obviously aligning to the NIST standards, but yeah, there are a few cases where, yeah, they're trying at a country level, they're trying to come up with different algorithms so that they don't have full dependency on the algorithms that are created, that are approved by NIST.
Okay, well, as we come to a close of our great conversation today, I have one final question for you, Han. What are your closing thoughts for anyone who would like to get started? Like, what does that first step look like?
Yeah, well, the message is very clear. I mean, the time to act is now. Ensuring hardware and software integrity is equally as important as securing your data. Like I said, the risk does not stop at your data. It can expand to the entire infrastructure. And having quantum safe secure boot protects you from any risk that could actually sabotage your infrastructure and bring down your entire network.
Well, there it is. Quantum safe campus design starts before the operating system loads. The code signing was where the longest lived attack surface can live, and the hardware anchored secure boot is what protects it.
Yeah, you can find links to related resources like Quantum Hub in the description for this video.